216 Creator Studios, your gateway to professional podcasting. Whether you're a seasoned podcaster or just starting, 216 Creator Studios offers state-of-the-art podcast studios designed to meet all your recording needs. From crystal clear audio quality to a comfortable creative space, we've got you covered. With fully equipped rooms, expert support, and flexible booking options, you can focus on what matters most, your content. Join us and bring your voice to life in the best environment for podcast creation. 216 Creator Studios is here to help you create something extraordinary.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Cappuccino here on another episode of Roger That Chronicles. Hey, listen, if you like what you see here today, don't be afraid to go to that Google box, hit YouTube, go to the live tab for 216 Creator Studios. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Make sure you ding that bell for future notifications. Chris, we have a full table today, do we not? I mean, holy Christmas.
We do.
So we are talking about MOS today, is that right?
Yes.
And it looks like we have the one and only famous Coach Papa in the house, Tim Stewart. Good to see you again there, sir.
Good to be here.
So why don't we go ahead and hand out those introductions here. I'm going to go ahead and do my hot swap. We don't even have enough mics, Chris. That's just how we're doing that. So I'll go ahead and pass that ball to you.
Okay, great. Well, we're thankful for the opportunity to be here and to host the Roger That Chronicles. So thanks for the opportunity for sure. So just for those of you that don't know, we are New Life Ministry and Outreach. It's a mouthful. So MNNO. We are an organization for veterans, and we help veterans find their purpose, reconnect with their passions or find their passions, and build meaningful connections after they get out of the military. So we're kind of been talking about transitions because it's like change is guaranteed in life. You're going to have transitions, you know. And so last time we talked about boot camp basic training type of that's what our episode was on. It was a lot of fun. If you haven't seen, you got to check it out. And so today we're kind of just going a little bit closer into the military experience and talking about MOS. And I'm not sure if all the branches use that. So it's basically the schooling options once you join the military.
MOS is Military Occupational Specialty.
Yep.
So, and the different branches, I know you call your schools different.
So we refer to it as our rate instead of our MOS.
Okay.
Yes. So, and I just wanted to do a quick introduction. Are we live now? Okay, perfect. So we have Kevin Legs. That's your name you're keeping.
Legs,
We're
yes.
joining us back with the Army. And he also brought along Rodriguez today.
That's correct.
And then we have a Navy, yes, a new face, Petty Officer Giedemann.
We can go with Emily if that's easier.
Okay, Emily.
Less of a mouthful.
I won't butcher it. So welcome, you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us today.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
for having
us.
So I didn't know if you were going to.
Well, I'm retired, so I spent 21 years, 4 months, 13 days, 6 hours. Who's counting?
Who's counting?
Who's counting, right?
There's not
So I've had the opportunity to span that career, and between active duty, active reserve, National Guard for the state of Illinois, I had a lot of fun throughout the course of my career. My brother was Navy. So especially the Army Navy, and we're from Nebraska, so we love football. So when the Army Navy game came up, it was always a thing, and it seemed like for a lot of years there, Navy was owning us.
Mhm.
Still are.
They had one good year. We've been winning for a while.
So, but my brother just he passed away last October, so he was out there supporting Navy. So
Nice.
we'll go with that. But I'm interested. I can always said I'd never be that guy to tell old war stories. But here I am. As we go through, we'll filter some of these things and go. But I grew up on a farm in Nebraska. So my idea of the Army was, and this was right at the end of the Vietnam War, was I grew up shooting things, and the Army was someplace where they shot back, and I wasn't really interested in doing that. But my friend Todd was going to join the Army, and he asked for a ride down to the recruiters station. So I gave him a ride, but I sat in the waiting area. I was not interested at all. Now, I had injured my knee in football, and my college prospects were done until I got the knee fixed. My dad couldn't afford to get it fixed. And while I was sitting in that waiting area, there was a pamphlet. And this pamphlet said Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center in Denver, Colorado was the orthopedic center of the United States Army. And I shouted across that room, I said, "Hey, sir, could you put me here?" He said, "Son, you sign this contract. I'll put you anywhere." I signed that contract. I became a military policeman. On my first day of duty, I went up to check out that orthopedic clinic thinking if I get this knee fixed, I can get out of the Army and go play football. Well, as the elevator doors opened up, this cute little redhead was sitting in the reception window, and I thought if I get to know her, I'll figure out who fixes my knee, and I'll go play football. I got to know her. I got to know them. They never touched my knee. And I've been married to her for 50 years. So
I knew that's where
so, every action we take, right? Every decision we make. She was a medic. I was a military policeman. And, we had our first child on active duty. So we do have an Army brat in the house. And, we had 2 more children after that. We now have 12 grandchildren. And we just had our first great-grandchild.
Wow.
A bunch of athletes in there. I mean, I can go
Nice.
through that. It's the story. You enter the military really not knowing, right?
Absolutely.
Recruiters tell you things, but I'm sorry, but you know how to tell when a recruiter's lying to you, right? The lips are moving. No,
We got 3 here.
But
I'll just tell you what it is.
they don't do it. It's sales, right? It's sales 101.
It is sales.
They're giving you this story, and you go in thinking, I wanted to work with juveniles. I was going to be a military police, work with juveniles. I got stationed at Fitzsimmons, more important for the knee, but I wanted to be the youth cop on post. And I got there, I'm meeting with the first sergeant. I said, "Well, tell me about your youth program." And he said, "What?" But your life, and all life, right? You start going down one path, but then it takes on a life of its own.
That's right.
And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, there are days after I retired that please just take me back. It's not safe out here. But throughout the course of my career as a military policeman, I was a combat engineer for a while.
Right.
I got out for a while. Then I went back into a National Guard unit, but it was an infantry unit.
Yep.
And I had spent most of my career resting those guys. So I said, "Don't you have anything else?" Well, the combat medic slot was open. So I took the combat medic slot. But that first annual training, they talked about OCS. So I went to the Officer Candidate School after 9 years enlisted, graduated, distinguished graduate from my class, and then branched infantry. That branch I hated. But then I was platoon leader, infantry, executive officer. Went back to the academy as a senior drill instructor at the academy for 5 years, and then company command, a scout platoon in there someplace. Just had so much fun, and those interactions and those people that I met along the way, as you guys have already experienced, have become friends for life.
For sure.
So interested to hear some of your stories, how you up and how the recruiter brought you in, and then how you became a recruiter. So I think those would be interesting stories to hear. So
I'll start. So funny thing, I just like you never ever wanted to be in the military, right? You know, some injuries happened to me as well. I thought I was going to play basketball or football. I did have scholarships for both. And then I said to myself, something didn't work out, right? I went back home. I went to the Marine office first, right? Yeah. But the thing was, the Marine was pressing me. And I said, you know, if I could do more pull-ups than you, I won't join. All right. And I think he ended up doing 23 and I did 25. So I'm like, I'm not joining the Marines. Right. And I'm a pretty laid back guy. And I was like, maybe it's not for me. I went to the Navy. Right. And then something about being out in water, I personally didn't like. And that's what I thought. You barely see
it. It's fine.
That's what I thought it was. Right. So I did a couple of PT sessions with them. And I was just like, man, I didn't see the physical like drive that I saw in that specific Navy recruiter station. I know all Navy recruiter stations are different. All right.
He has to give me that.
Yeah, I went to the Army office. Everything was so chill. The guys were direct. We did PT. They were challenging me. And I was like, all right, this might be what I want to do. My mom said, do anything besides combat. I said, got you, Mom. No doubt. Went in the recruiting station, picked combat. Became a forward observer. I blew stuff up. I've been to Somalia. I've been to Ireland. I've been all over Europe. Done a lot of cool things. And now, you know, I got selected to become a recruiter. And I'm here now in Chicago.
So how did you end up being in infantry? Because I know we're talking about like MOS and what that is. And so what is that for the Army?
So I'm a forward observer. I'm a 13 Fox. I work directly with the infantry, right? Infantry is more direct action and stuff. I also do direct action, but I'm more on like the planning side. And I call in artillery strikes, mortar strikes. I talk to aircraft to blow stuff up if I know we're going to go to an obstacle and they want it cleared beforehand, right? So I do a lot of planning. It's a lot of math, knowing like your battle space area. So it's a lot of coordination with a lot of different groups.
He's our guy up on the hill. So as we're moving, getting ready to attack, we don't attack when they're up walking around. We want their heads down.
Yeah.
So we will call out the coordinates, and he's up there. He's a forward observer. He's out there hanging out by himself. Forward observers and snipers have got to learn
and where to get
right how to operate. So he's up there, and he's got a little laser device a lot of times, and he's laying that right on the target. So as we're in the attack position, or the assault position, ready for the attack, we hit that final button. He calls it in.
Yep.
He witnesses it. Okay, they're down. Their heads are down. Now you can attack.
Yeah.
So he is our eyes and ears. The success of every mission or failure of every mission really rides on what he's doing. He's one of the key individuals in our.
Yeah. So, and that's why there's very few of us, specifically in my MOS. So, like for the way we like to describe it too, at least on the Army side, for every platoon of infantrymen, there's only one forward observer. So it's a lot of responsibility, but you know, the infantry guys are animals. We're animals. We get after it.
So how much training is involved in that?
So basic training is 10 weeks, right? After basic training, you go to AIT, which is advanced individual training. And then for my job during the time, it was about 7.5 weeks. Now it's about 9 weeks. Because they added a little bit more things in there. There's more new technology, new equipment, so they get trained on that.
So is it pretty challenging?
Yes, I'm not gonna lie. Yes, because you have to be really good at thinking on your feet, like very, very good at math, thinking on your feet, looking at numbers, being in really good physical shape, being good at shooting. So yeah, you got to be
running.
So what happens if you sign up for that, and then what if you change your mind? Can you switch to something else?
Yeah, you absolutely can. Yeah. So the way the Army does it is you do have to fulfill that first initial contract, but about 12 months before that contract ends, you go talk to your career counselor. You see if there's any openings for different jobs that you want to do. And if your ASVAB score is too low, they send you to a school that's called BSEP or ASVAB training school. And then I've been there and you just It's a 2-week course. Some other bases it might be a little bit longer, but generally it's a 2-week course. And then you take the ASVAB over again, you get a better score. Generally people do about 20 points higher. So it's a really good school. And then you change your job. You sign a new contract.
And then you have to go through all the new training all over again.
The job training.
The job training.
Not basic
training.
Okay. Yeah. So you got to learn that job and then switch over. Yeah.
Okay.
Before going into the Army, had you had experience shooting?
None. Zero. Nothing. Shooting a basketball.
Well, when these knees get a little bit better, I'll join you. Yeah. When I went in, I was a farm boy, so I thought everybody shot guns.
Yeah.
Right. And then I found out that over 90% of my platoon had never fired a weapon in their lives. Right. So getting out there in this mix of training, and I was an NRA competitor also. So peep sights were right on my thing. So I was I maxed out my very first rifle range, 40
out of 40. Man.
20. And I'm qualified expert for every weapon system. And the people who failed, they actually enlisted me because they all had to go through the remedial training.
Yeah.
And so because I could communicate with people, so that was, kind of along my line of becoming a trainer. Moving forward, all happened on
That's awesome.
BRM, basic rifle markings.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. And there's always that thing of, should you learn before you go or should you not know? Because it's like some people pick up bad habits and then it's hard to correct that.
That's
so. You just brought me back to that day. So we're sitting in the bleachers out there.
Yeah.
You guys know what it's like. And he says, how many of you have never fired a weapon before? A lot of hands goes up. And he said, I suppose I got some smart ass farm boy out there that thinks he's pretty good. Yes, for sure. So you can't help yourself, especially me. I can't help myself. Right? But a hand goes up and he goes, "Come on down here, son," and he gives me an M16 with a mag with 20 rounds from the standing position. He's like, so he pops a 75-meter target, and I hit it. He pops 150. I hit it. He pops 300, and I knocked down the 300 first time with an M16
no sights,
sight adjustment.
Yeah.
And I hit it, and he looks at me and he says, well, this is what record fire looks like. And I was 20 for 20 that day from a standing position. He says, okay. Now he says, we're going to go on. And from that point on, I had their attention.
Yeah.
And I did qualify for and passed the entrance for sniper school, but decided not to go down that route because, again, that was right at the end of Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I was a military policeman. And I wanted to get my knee fixed.
About the knee.
Everything for me early on was about the knee.
Yeah.
But they lasted until just a couple of years ago. So.
Did they finally VA take care of them? Or?
No, I found the founder of Illinois Bone and Joint replaced this one on June 25th, and this one was 5 weeks ago.
Okay.
So I have 2 brand new titanium knees. I have new plumbing around the heart. So. So what's your story? How did you wind up?
Well, I didn't really know what I wanted to do after high school. So then I wanted some excitement, and I had talked to some friends, and they were thinking about joining. After talking, they're like, yeah, we're looking up videos and, talking to recruiters. We decided to go combat engineers, which is what you say you're prior to. And you mentioned being a support element for the infantry. Same with us. We're just supporting what their mission is, right? So, but he will support us in a sense. So our main job was basically breaching an obstacle. If they came up to something and they're like, hey, we need to get over this, or we need to blow it out of the way or something, we would go set explosives on it. And then, they can go through. However, we wouldn't expose ourselves to the enemy. So we would have to call someone else to support us to put smoke or, keep their hands down. And so, yeah, I think I agree with what you said. It's a lot of communicating with your other branch MOS and jobs, because they support the main fight, which is the infantry, So we don't just have infantry, we have a lot more jobs, but it's mostly supporting jobs. So
what are the 5 main ones?
Medical, right? We have medical, someone that needs to see your soldier because he needs to get immunizations, pills, and whatnot, get seen medically. We have human resources. We need someone to keep your records or your schools, all of that. And then we have finance. Somebody has to pay you. We have legal. Somebody does your issues or you get in trouble. You have rights and all this. So We have cops. So there's a lot. So like it is really like it's like a mini
Community.
world community in there.
Yeah.
You have just about anything that you would expect on the civilian side.
Yeah.
For
for the Army.
For every infantry soldier out on the front line, there are 9 soldiers supporting. Or 9 soldiers, there are 9 military personnel supporting every infantry. So now, when I came up, it was all frontal assault. Now, during my career, the 360 air land battle doctrine started coming in, and that's when we started, giving women more military weapons training and hand-to-hand combat training, because they weren't anymore standing behind a straight line up here and they're coming at us and we're coming at them. You never knew where the enemy was coming. So every single soldier needed to be trained in infantry tactics as well. So those people supporting us, we couldn't make it without them.
Seriously, for sure.
So for the jobs, I guess, for supporting, it's real. Like we have, like you said, basic training is your basic infantry soldiering tasks. So everyone's gonna know just your battle drills, which is up to doctrine, the basics, calling in medic, like an airline, helicopter, 9-line, doing
battle drill 1 alpha, learning how to shoot your weapon, land navigation skills, a little bit on the medical side,
just your basic ones that will get you by to like defend yourself and wait for the infantry and hope for the best, right? And then your other ones, we call it advanced individual training, which is your actual job. And then that's where you learn your actual job. Like if you're a medic, you're going to go through all their courses, certifications that you need. For me, I changed from at the time it was 21 Bravo and it went to 12 Bravo. So I was combat engineer, and then I switched to 11 Bravo because when I was out on the field, I would spend time with them, and then sometimes it was cool that you got to like ride helicopters and do like all this equipment stuff that we didn't have. So like, how do I do that? And like you said, I waited my time, and then I decided to apply for it, and then it was surprisingly easy. I just had to wait for my window to open, apply for it, and then I was able to change to infantry, which is 11B. I was able to deploy with a unit that had helicopters, and I got to do aerial QRF. Which is just a quick response team. And when somebody was in an emergency and they needed help, they would call us and we would land and provide that help support. And so after that, I was like, I kind of did this, but I'm over it. So I'm going to switch it again.
Something new.
So I switched to logistics after that because, I enjoy being at the front, but after a while, you're like, I want to push my luck, So I wanted to be in the back now, so I went logistics.
I was in China
So for a while, I was like, this is great, but now it's like getting personal sometimes. So I pushed to the back.
Getting a little bit older, a little bit wiser.
So wife is in the background.
If you look at mine went from like blowing stuff up to like shooting guns and like. Now I'm way in the back, and
and now you're a recruiter, way in the back. No.
Definitely. And then I went to logistics, right? So which I did moving cargo around and supporting, like putting it on docks, putting it on rail, putting it on a plane, putting it on a truck. So sending it to the front line or where it was needed here in the States. And then USREC, which is our command, they're like, you're going recruiting now. So I was like, okay. So that's my 4th MOS now. So
jack of all trades, huh?
So you're definitely promoted.
I am.
He's been everywhere.
Wow.
We like to use the analogy that because that's the most question. The question that we hear the most, right? Is like, what type of jobs do you have? And it's the same for all branches, right? Like she says it all the time. We have everything, but besides cosmetology.
No, we have hairstylists. We have everything but real estate agents.
But real estate agents, we don't have that. I ain't got no cosmetology. I'll be honest with you guys. There's no cosmetology.
You're on a ship. You got to stay in regs. So you
You
got people to cut your hair.
Cut hair. Right.
My niece is
For real.
in Japan right now. She just crossed her 21st year in the Navy.
Oh,
She just went from Sasebo in South Japan to North Post. So she is. I always tease her all the time. I says, did you get your makeup class in today?
Well, so you got to think about it, right? Like a ship is a floating city. We have everyone from Starbucks to nuclear engineers. Like that city has to stay alive. So whatever you have here in Crystal Lake, we have on USS Nimitz, or now we've got, 2 new carriers that are getting built, and we're building in even more jobs as the newer ones come about because we're learning what we were missing on the old ones.
So. She's described a cruise ship with guns.
Yeah, right.
So how did you?
Yeah.
So my story is a teensy bit different from y'all. So my dad was Army. Actually, might have been the same time as you. He was in from 69 to 73.
I went in 73.
Oh, okay, just missed you. So
we were like.
Yeah, so my dad talked about Army a lot growing up, and his best friend was a captain in the Navy. And so I got a lot of Navy experience growing up with her. She had 2 daughters that were 4 and 2 years older than me. So they kind of got the brunt of the recruiting growing up. And then I got, a little bit of it throughout. And so at like 6 or 7 years old, I told my dad that I wanted to be a Navy nuclear chemist, which is not what most 7-year-old girls are thinking about. But I decided that's what I wanted to do. I ended up in high school becoming my debate team captain, won state tournaments a bunch of times. And so I thought, maybe this Navy thing was all just a little dream, like transferred over to thinking about law school. I got accepted to every college I applied for, including Cornell, had a lot of scholarships, some for softball, some for academics. And halfway through my senior year, I sat down to actually look at how expensive college is. And I was like, oh, a full ride doesn't give me full ride money. It's still expensive. So 16 years old, halfway through my senior year, went behind my mom's back, sat down with a Navy recruiter. I was like, listen, man, I was thinking about this as a kid. I want to do it now. I want to talk to you about the nuclear program.
Okay, I have to stop you right here. How did you even hear about that when you're 7 years old?
So, my grandfather was a chemist for Alcoa during World War II. And so growing up, my dad was always talking about hey, your brain functions the same way. I'd be in the kitchen and I had to have everything set out, ingredients in the order I was going to use them, pre-measured. That was just how my brain operates. And so my dad was always talking about chemistry would be great. And then because I went to a Catholic school, we had a little more funding for kids actually following their dreams and what they were interested in. And so I was able to kind of explore nuclear options there.
Wow. Did you start blowing stuff up in high school chemistry?
I blew a couple things up.
Sodium and
lost an eyebrow once or twice, but never did that in the Navy. So my job is to not blow stuff up, actually, full opposite of y'all. I'm supposed to keep it not Oppenheimer-ish.
Right.
Halfway through your senior year at 16 years old.
Yeah, so I was a little bit ahead of my class. So I ended up turning 18 September after I graduated high school. So I started senior year at 16 years old, which means that I had to get my parents' permission to join the Navy. And so I sat down with the recruiters. I was like, hey, want to talk about this nuclear stuff. And my recruiter kind of laughed at me, honestly. He was like, listen, this is you've got SEALs, they're the hardest physical ones. You got nukes, that's the hardest mental ones. They had never written a female nuke out of that recruiting station. That was just there were unicorns and then there were golden unicorns. And they said that I was a golden unicorn. So took that practice ASVAB. They were surprised with my score. And then I had to get my parents on board. So I made a 28-page PowerPoint. My mom made me do a formal Lincoln Douglas debate to convince her that turning down a full ride scholarship to do the Navy now was the right thing. She made me do a Naval Academy application at the same time, just in case I didn't pick up the job that I wanted. Luckily with the Navy, and I'm pretty sure same with y'all, you have guaranteed jobs, right? Yeah. So when we sign our contract, you're getting that job no matter what. Your recruiter can't change it. No one at MEPS can change it. So my mom was like, if you don't sign nuke, you're not signing anything. You're going to the academy instead. I ended up getting a 95 on my ASVAB, qualified for nuke. Took a little bit to convince the parents. I had to go to MEPS twice to actually sign my contract. But I signed it. I shipped out 4 days after I turned 18. So my entire life for the past 7 years, 3 months, and a little bit of change has been Navy. I did a little over a year and a half of schooling. So nuclear training is the longest training out of any of the branches, assuming like, SEALs, SWCC, the special warfare guys have really long trainings depending on like how many times they have to repeat schools. But I got kind of lucky with boot camp. It's 9 weeks now. I was in a push division for Thanksgiving, so mine was like 7.5. So got kind of lucky there. And then I did 3 months of learning how to be a mechanic, 6 months of just nuclear power school classroom training. They basically take the MIT nuclear engineering technology degree, condense it down into like just what you need to know, no fluff, no writing essays, like just learn how a reactor works. So you do that for 6 months. And then I did 6 months working on a plant in Ballston Spa, New York, that's owned by the Department of Energy. So that was like actual hands-on working on a nuclear power plant.
Wow.
And then I was stationed on an aircraft carrier for 4.5 years as a nuclear mechanic.
Nice.
So how did they let you take a break to become a recruiter?
So it's not so much they let me as they asked me. So after COVID, obviously a lot of stuff changed in the world. And we saw kind of a shift in recruiting. So when we all joined, it was 80% of people walked into the office saying that they want to join. Now it's much more focused on community outreach because just the world has changed and people aren't just walking into places anymore, much less a recruiting station. And I was kind of a little more on the public speaking side, a little more outgoing. I held a lot of leadership positions on my ship. Even as a junior sailor. So I got in trouble a little bit early on. So I was a E4 for a little bit longer than I should have been before I made E5. But they saw my personality compared to what was on paper. And they're like, hey, we think that this would be a great opportunity for you. They said, hey, that opportunity is also in the middle of Illinois. So be ready to be cold. So I was born in San Diego, raised on a farm in Texas. So
What part of Texas?
Fredericksburg.
Yep. My son was a mechanic.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. So I was on USS Nimitz, named after Admiral Nimitz. His hometown is Fredericksburg, Texas. I took my high school senior pictures at the Nimitz Museum, having no idea that I was going to be on USS Nimitz. So I have 10 years of pictures from like Emily at 15 to Emily at 25 standing next to the Nimitz statue.
Here's something.
Pretty cool.
Now, you guys are all in the same recruiting station.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
They're all in Crystal Lake, yeah.
Did you guys know this about her?
I knew a little bit about this,
Okay.
but
I'd be careful what you say
oh,
around.
he hears me all the time.
I do not. I'm not scary. I just tell him to run more. He doesn't run enough.
I do run enough. I run enough.
That's right. With that nickname, you should be really quick.
I am at short distances.
He's quick. I do long distance running, so I run ultra marathons.
That's a big difference.
Yep.
I just run
Yeah.
off the mouth and jump to conclusions.
We all do that.
So, in the recruiting world now, you guys have all you've been recruited, you've gone through. What are some of the most challenging moments you've had? You got a kid who's interested, but you've got a parent who's kind of battling. What are some of the situations you've had helping a young man or woman come into the military?
So I'd say something that I specifically come across a good bit is when someone comes in with a specific job in mind, right? And I tell them, hey, for this job to happen, you need to score within a certain range. So I emphasize the needs of testing, practicing, testing, and just repeat that cycle, right? Now, when that kid, usually high school kids, aren't that proactive about their studying, right? The parents is very involved in like, hey, this is the job, she's going to do it or he's going to do it, X, Y, Z. They come in, don't score where they should be. Now there's a disconnect between parent, child, and recruiter, right? Now, what I always say, I don't promise any job. What I promise is whatever range that you score in and the jobs that populate for you and you choose and you're happy with it, great. Now I say once you score within a certain range, like I got a 93 on my ASVAB. She got a 95 on her ASVAB. Usually when you go within those ranges, all jobs are going to pop up for you, right?
Right.
So if you don't score within a certain range, these jobs aren't going to pop up for you. So it's really that disconnect, and then trying to find a way to connect everyone, to make everyone happy.
So how do you find that sweet spot?
So what I normally do, right, I have a 1 to 5 checklist, right? I say, hey, give me your top 5 jobs. Give me your non-negotiable. This is what I want no matter what. And then give me your, if it's not there, give me 4 more of like another non-negotiable, right? So I try to say like, hey, I want one that's super smart. I want one that's right below that super smart. One that's right below that one. And then a job that you know you can get for sure. And we go through that. We sift through it, right? On my, the Army Careers app. And I say, all right, if you score the worst, you'll be happy with this job. They said yes. So that's how I kind of manage that. But sometimes the parents are the ones that's like,
no, my kid's super smart.
Yes.
No, I'm not
and
kidding.
I'm just like, look, I'm not doubting your kid is smart. I'm just saying they didn't study for the test. So
right. I think that's key of not studying.
Yeah.
Because it's a pretty intense test to take, right?
I mean, I don't want to say it's like super intense because, you know, when we administer this test, it's really generally like around like 11th grade and 12th grade math, English, science.
Oh, so it's basics.
Yeah, so it's it's basic stuff, but it's things that you have to recall if you haven't done it in a long time.
Okay.
So I'm going to back up to when I came in. And I just had to double check. The Navy and Army used their own test selection for classification from 73 to 75. So the ASVAB didn't come in until after.
Yep.
So the testing that we went through was like 3 days of different testing.
What?
And the scoring was 135 max out of the combination of all the different scores. So I'm assuming 100 is max.
So it's actually 99 as a max. So
it's
yeah,
percentile based.
It's percentile based.
Yeah.
Back then it was 135 out of everything. And I didn't know what I wanted to do coming in. And I wound up with a 132. So that, you know.
Oh, so you're definitely
yeah, you're just going anywhere.
No, and in basic training, they said, you're going to OCS. And I said, no way. I think too much about those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, FO meant something different when it came to officers.
Yeah.
You know, liking officer, if you have to together with that. So I didn't make that transition until 10 years in the military.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different world. And as a company commander later on, when I'd have, you know, my soldiers go through the ASVAB and they wound up in the infantry, which you have to score pretty well to be in the infantry, believe it or not. It's not a,
you do.
It's not a, bottom feeders get the infantry. No, it's up here. And my recruiters come in, we got 4 more, sir, and then they'd hang their head because I'd sit them down and ask them. Most of the guys were coming in for their college in that era, from 89 through 2000, you know, up to 2001 with 9/11. They come in for their college education. And my first question was, what are you willing to pay for your college education? And they're like, well, University of Illinois at that time, believe it or not, was $10,000 a year, right?
Oh my.
Right? And they'd be like, well, $10,000 a year. I said, no, if you're coming this way to get your college paid for, it might cost you your life. Are you willing to give your life for a college education? Yep. Now, I never had anyone turn away, but I made sure when they went to basic training that they had the right mindset that this is, I mean, this is real. This isn't, you know, somebody saying, hey, you can get a college education if you put on a uniform. You may be wind up in, And I was part of one of the first activations. I was company commander of Woodstock, actually, in '92, with right at the end of Desert Storm, where the unit was activated, but we weren't deployed because Saddam had thrown his hands up and the activation was recalled. But we had to go through the whole MO process and everything. So I was part of that very first, here's your practice, good, now we don't have to do it. Right? So it's been a whole transition sitting on this side and watching, you know, you younger people go through. And,
hey, we're trying.
And I encourage, as a high school coach for a number of years, and I got these young men and women, I couldn't tell you the number of, I lose a few to the Marines every year, but I don't know if you're aware. Is there a Marine unit where you're at? Let them know they just passed a law that they can no longer call Marines jarheads. No, they found out jars contain things, and it's just no.
I'm right there with you. I already know.
Hey. Marine mom here.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. And the another thing too about this connects to it's medical.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, we emphasize just honesty, because we're recruiters. That means we want you to join.
Mm-hmm.
You come to the office, just tell me the truth, please, because it's just going to make it go by a lot quicker.
Right.
Withholding information, especially about your medical background, we're going to find out. It's inevitable. Like, it's going to happen. Just let us get a head start on what we need to do.
And we need to know so we can help. Like,
Yeah.
So for me, I've got less than a year left in service, active at least. And I want to make sure that I'm putting in men and women that are going to fill my spot and like do well there. But I can't do that if I don't know when these like massive flags are going to pop up and suddenly it's hey, why didn't we know about this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Chief.
was that important?
Yeah.
Diabetes
that's
is an issue.
Yeah, right. Like, because as she stated, like during COVID, or prior to COVID, mental health, it was taken seriously, but not as seriously as it was being now, right? So like we didn't have this mass influx of mental health medication being circulated around like high school kids, right? But now we'd be lucky to find one high school kid that hasn't taken mental health medication. And that's no dig, but we just want to know so we can help.
Right. And I think social media helps feed into that because it's like they're getting news off of their social media and then dealing with stuff that older generations never had to deal with that until after they were older. Yeah. And then,
yeah, right.
Okay.
Exactly what my mom said. Hyper.
Right. As well as just some of the things that are going on domestically.
Well, and let's go back to one of your first comments coming in, the transition. I mean, you're facing that right in front of you. The transition from military to civilian. We do a great job of transitioning you from civilian life to military life. And we do it in 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 7.5 weeks if it's Thanksgiving. Or you're in the Navy.
9 weeks now.
9 weeks. But we're still trying to figure out how to help soldiers transition. I mean, this is a big part of what you do from military forward. Now, you've all been involved in combat situations.
Yeah.
Okay. There's stuff going on, right? What are we doing to help that?
Exactly.
What are we doing to prevent, the future? Now, I'm vice chair of the American Legion in McHenry. And 2 years ago, we did a 22-mile road march for that. I mean, that magic number, which isn't a real number at all, but it's run somewhere around 22
a day.
Events a day. But, if you do the actual research, it runs anywhere from some years at 19 to others at 27. Yeah. But the truth is, if even one does, it's one too many. Yeah. What are we doing to work with that? And your organization, I think, is doing.
Yeah, we're trying to take a proactive approach so that we can get those things identified and get them connected with other people. Even if it's only peer-led group meetings, just being able to talk about that with somebody is huge.
And and I think we touched a little bit on this in the last podcast as well. Like, so at least for us, because I've only ever been in the Army, so I could speak for this. We are shifting to I think a pretty great way of being proactive, of sending our former soldiers back into the civilian world by we're letting them do 6 month school drops, right? Exactly. Skill bridge. Anything that they want to do specifically that pertains to a career field that they can obtain outside, we let them go do it, right? Sometimes it can go from like 6 to 8 months, right? Depending on your commander. And most likely, if you're a good soldier, your commander is going to want to help you for sure, right? And it's been emphasized a lot more since I've been in, and I think it's a good thing, right? And then just like how we talk about, like every year we have our career counselor, and our career counselors even tell us like, hey, if you're not happy with your job, like let us know, because that can also affect your mental well-being about going out into the civilian world, right?
Right.
Like me specifically, I could take myself as an example and to tie this to MOS and stuff, right? I was combat from the jump. That's all I wanted to do, blow stuff up. And I've noticed I became a lot more vulgar, a lot more, because that's the environment that you just have to, form yourself to be, right? Now, coming to the recruiting side of stuff, I had to watch my language, watch the way my attitude is, and my persona, right? The way I present myself. Because, I was a little rough around the edges. But now I'm in school. I'm finishing on my bachelor's degree to become a physician's assistant through the Army TA, right? Through this program, it's called IPAP, right? Inter-Service Physician's Assistant Program. If I want to do that, that's another change I'm going to have to make, right?
Right.
So now I'm going to have to be a lot more subtle, right? A lot more compassionate, right? So they do a really good job about saying like, hey, if this is what you want to do, here are the steps that you need to take and change.
Oh, that's good, because that's a gradual progression.
Exactly.
And you have to think like that's something that the civilian world doesn't provide. Like I've got a year worth of classes between now and getting out that if you think about a college senior, like my younger sister graduated a year ago, she didn't have a, hey, here's how you go get a job. Here's how you write a resume. Here's how you dress professionally for interviews. The Navy's giving me all of that. So like the transition process has become much more helpple in that regard.
That is so good to hear. And I know we can actually talk forever, but I'm kind of getting it's time.
We're getting
but I wanted to thank you all for coming.
There, we can't see it.
I do have a gift for you guys from Konrad Bakery.
Before we get there, I want to bring one thing up. Part of the issue between military suicides and suicides out is we train these individuals how to kill. If they know how to kill, then they know how to be effective in doing that themselves. So we have to untrain that concept. So that's just one piece I wanted to
sure.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot involved.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that offline.
Yeah.
So thank you. Usually you wipe it out and you don't have a mic for us. If you like us, go ahead and
share.
That's what it is.
Hit that bell. If you're on YouTube, hit that bell so when you when we pop up, you get a notice that we're here. Yeah. And then if you've got military friends, share that. If you've got non-military friends, but they have military in their family, share. That's everybody. We all know someone in the military. Let's get people listening to this because the information that is shared here is information that needs to go out. So I walked through a county courthouse square. On a park bench, an old man was sitting there. I said, your old courthouse is kind of run down. He said, nah, it'll do for our little town. I said, your flagpole's leaned a little bit. And that's a ragged old flag you have hanging on it. He said, have a seat. So I sat down. Is this the first time you've been to our little town? And I think it is. He said, I don't like to brag, but I'm mighty proud of that ragged old flag. You see, you got a little hole in that flag there when Washington took it across the Delaware and it got powder burned the night Francis Scott Key sat watching it writing, oh, say, can you see? Got a bad rip down in New Orleans with Packingham and Jackson tugging at the seams, and she almost fell at the Alamo beside the Texas flag, but she waved on through. She got cut by a sword at Chancellorsville. She got cut again at Shallow Hill. There was Robert E. Lee, Beauregard, and Bragg, and the south wind blew hard on that ragged old flag. Flanders Field in World War I, she got a big hole from a Bertha gun. She turned blood red in World War II. She hung limp and low before that was through. She was in Korea and Vietnam. She went where she was sent by her Uncle Sam. She's been through the fire before, and I believe she can take a whole lot more. So we raise her up every morning, take her down every night. We don't let her touch the ground, and we fold her up right. On second thought, I do like to brag because I'm mighty proud of that ragged old flag. God bless you.